All right, everybody, this is Sean from Ridesharing101.com. It's a little warm today. I have the window down and the engine running, so hopefully you can hear me okay. But today's vlog, I'm calling it Gary Vee, Uber, the criminal attorney, and the child molester. I know, it's a mouthful. Pretty interesting. I'm going to try and tie this all together and not have it go on forever. So I've been watching a lot of marketing videos because I'm really interested in getting more viewers to the vlog and getting more traffic to the website. So I've been watching a lot of Gary Vee videos, and Gary Vee is a really interesting marketer. I like a lot of his stuff. He gives a lot of free content, and I'm really into what he has to say. And he was talking recently, I was watching a video about a talk that he was giving to a recent group of interns, and they were asking about social media, and the talk got into accountability. And what Gary was saying is you cannot rely on these internet companies to limit access for you. So if you think you're watching too many, if you're on Facebook too much, you're watching Instagram too much, don't rely on Apple to limit the amount of time you can spend on those apps. You need to do it yourself. You need to be accountable. And I bring this up because Uber has a new feature, or it's introducing a new feature, or thinking about introducing a new feature. I haven't seen it here in the San Francisco Bay Area yet, but it's probably coming. And it's an Uber quiet mode, where a passenger in the back can request a quiet ride. So basically, it's them requesting that you simply don't speak to them. And I think they also have the option of maybe requesting either the radio on or off, and possibly the temperature. And I think this is a really silly thing, because I think if somebody doesn't want any music or they want a quiet ride, they simply could say, hey, I really appreciate the ride, but I'm going to try and do some work, and I need to concentrate. Would you mind us not having a conversation, nothing personal, or would you mind turning the radio off just so I can concentrate a little more? I'd really appreciate it. I don't know any driver that would take that request and deny it. I think they'd appreciate the fact that the person recognizes it's their radio, or they might want to talk and just explain what their situation is. And I think any driver would honor that. Just my opinion, but I don't see a lot of support, for something otherwise. I just think it's crazy that people can't have a conversation like that. And I understand, sometimes people, they're doing work, they want to look at emails, and they don't want to talk. The only exception I've ever seen is I've found that attorneys love to speak. And I've had a lot of great conversations with attorneys. And especially when I tell attorneys, hey, I've dated 3 women through law school. And in fact, the first woman that I dated that was in law school did law review. She passed the bar, and she went on to be president of the bar association in her city of like 1 million people. And she could still very well be president of the law association. So Chris, if you're watching, I hope everything's going well for you. And I can talk to attorneys because I used to have a record label, so I know entertainment law. I can talk law school. I can mention the case of the hairy hand, terms like assumption of the risk, classes like torts or wills and trusts. And when I start getting into those terms, the attorneys kind of understand that, even though despite the fact that I have no interest in law, I know a little bit about it because I've been through it. And I had a pastor once, she was a criminal attorney. And I said, oh, well, do you mind if I ask you some questions? And she's like, certainly not. Fire away. I love talking about my job. All attorneys, they seem to really love, talking about the stuff that they do. And, I was asking her, I'm sure you get this a lot of times, but how do you sort of reconcile the people you represent with the crimes that they're accused of committing? And, I'm sure there are a lot of innocent people, but not everybody is going to be innocent. And she said, yeah, it's really tough. She just has to understand that everybody is innocent till proven guilty, and everybody, despite what they've done, they still have some rights. And then she started talking about a child molester that she had represented. And there really wasn't any sort of question about whether he was guilty or innocent. He was definitely guilty, and the evidence was overwhelming. And she said in that case, it was just her job to make sure that he got proper representation and that he got a fair trial, no matter how most people feel about that. And that was her job. And the main thing, she said, is he had some health conditions and he needed some medical treatment. So it was she felt it was incumbent upon her to make sure that he got that care while he was in jail serving out his sentence. And and then we got into some more moralistic things. She said, fortunately she never had to represent a rapist. She didn't know how she would deal with that. She said it would, be very tough. She was sure. But then we got into some other issues like, isn't it sort of ironic that here's somebody, he's doing time for this crime that most of us would agree is abhorrent, and yet he gets medical attention in prison, and yet there are some people that work for Uber, independent contractors, that have medical conditions and they cannot get health insurance on their own. And we talked about that a little bit, and I think that's kind of interesting as well, especially in California with AB 5, Assembly Bill 5, that kind of codifies and qualifies and talks about how rideshare drivers are classified. So, I have a lot of conversations like this that are very interesting. So I love speaking with my passengers, and my mind works in very interesting and mostly linear ways. So I have the Gary Vee video where he's talking about being accountable. I have Uber, where they're not really making people accountable, where people actually have to talk to their driver and interact. They just, press a button so they don't have to say anything, which I think is laughable. I don't think I'd honor that request if it came through, frankly, because if you can't talk to me, then I really don't want anything to do with you, and I don't care what you think. And then you have the other extreme of, a lawyer who is representing people that don't want to be held accountable, and then tying it all back to this healthcare and AB 5 bill that's going on with Uber. So that's what I've been thinking about today. So I hope you found this interesting. Some people say I'm long-winded. I say, if you think I'm long-winded, don't watch my videos, dummy. I don't care. I have 77 viewers, or 79. Okay, so I don't know, 79 people seem to like what I have to say, and millions of other people don't. And that's the way it is on today. So be safe, be kind, treat each other well. And I'll post again tomorrow. All right, bye guys.